Greetings and salutations, guys. I'm here to talk about Chapter 4 of Season 2 of Andor, which is to say I'm here to talk about the final episodes of the entire series. This will be a full spoiler chat, so if you've not seen episodes 10, 11, and 12, well, you can watch this if you don't care about spoilers. But we're going to go into spoiler zone right now. What a freaking accomplishment this show was. I am sad to say goodbye to it. It was something so special. I think just in TV in general, I think it's been a real, standout series. And then with Star Wars, it's such a unique, special series within the Star Wars universe. I'm so glad we got it. It is this crazy outlier as far as tonally what it's doing, the maturity of it, the darkness of it. And yeah, I don't know if we're going to see something quite like it again. I hope that it does, have its impact going forward into other stories. But yeah, it really went out on a high note. This was pretty freaking incredible. Do I have a couple quibbles? Sure. And some of them are basically just echoing things I said about the entire season. But most of all, I'm just, really amazed by what they did here and how much impact it had. But what I really have to say as we get into it is, come on, Kleya, right? I tweeted that early on after I saw these episodes a few weeks ago, that, I felt like she was a huge standout part of the season. And then I thought, well, that seemed weird as the episodes are airing. And I was like, well, no, she's got cool stuff. And obviously there's that great sequence where they have to get the bug out of the art, at the party. And that's a really wonderful scene. And she's got other great scenes. But it was really these episodes, obviously, that made me really say that. Most importantly, episode 10, which is she's the lead in. I mean, it's so interesting structurally what they do here. And they do something really risky, and I'm so glad they did it. Which is, it's not a new thing for a series to take someone who's been a supporting character and be like, this is their episode. What's life like for them? Let's put a spotlight on them. But for this series to do it at this point felt like a risk, because Andor is telling this incredibly truncated story now in season 2. Everything is so compacted. We're jumping ahead a year every 3 episodes, and they don't have a lot of time to tell this story. And my only real ongoing complaint has been sometimes I think that made things a little strange along the way, and it felt like we had to catch up a little more than I'd like. But the series was still great. But still, for them to take this episode and say, you know what? Cassian's not going to be in this episode. Amon Mothma's not going to be in this episode. We are going to really focus in not just on Luthen, who, yes, we're saying goodbye to him in this episode, and he deserves an episode that will kind of really go into him a little more, but on Kleya, who has been notable and important and significant, but not been one of the leads on this show, and for her to kind of take over the show in this episode, and then kind of stay one of the leads for the next 2 episodes as the show ends. It was such an interesting way to do it, but I think it works because, again, the writing is so strong, and then the performance is so great. Elizabeth Dulau, and it's funny that I don't even know if I'm saying her name right. I think that's going to change very quickly as she gets to do more interviews and press and gets more roles off this. But she's been so good from the beginning on this show, and I know she was kind of this real find for them as far as the casting goes. But what she does here, kind of taking over the series in this way at this pivotal point, and holding the screen and making sure you were so invested in what's going on with her, and, caring about her and caring about how alone she feels and the desperation of it all, and the fact that I was very worried that this was going to be the end for her. Was she going to possibly make it through all this alive? So well done. And then the flashbacks, Luthen dies relatively early in episode 10, and it felt like, oh, that's, I didn't think he was going to make it to the end of the series, but it felt a little strange to take him out that early. But then, of course, he gets all this other scenes. By the way, I should correct myself. He's not dead, I know, for the rest of episode 10, but he's, in this coma, and it's kind of like, we know he's probably not going to wake up from this because the Empire can't get information from him that they never get. But to get these flashbacks and to see her as a child and him, caring for her in his own way, they have that interesting interaction where she says, am I your daughter now? And he's like, when it's useful. But we know he cared for her. He just was Luthen, so he's going to keep, some arm's length there as much as he can. Even as he is caring for her and protecting her, and even as he's teaching her to do all these things, and bringing her to her first bombing. I believe on Naboo. Man, if I'm wrong and that's not Naboo, I'll feel like a real nerf herder. But I think it was Naboo. If it wasn't Naboo, it was a very beautiful, similar place. But yeah, just seeing that evolution and how this character, how Kleya became who she is and how she's so driven and the bond she had with Luthen, but that she was always pushing back, and the push and pull we see between them when we met, for the moment we met them, that was there. Yeah, so great, so well done, and great work by young April V. Woods playing the young version of Kleya. She and Stellan Skarsgård have a great rapport together in these flashbacks that are peppered throughout episode 10 and really show us how this relationship was forged and give even more weight to what's happening with Kleya in the show's present, because she's going to go through her mission. She is going to kill Luthen because he cannot be left alive in this state. What if he wakes up? What if they torture information out of him? He, of course, would want her to do what she's doing, but this is still someone who's meant a lot to her in her life. And so, yeah, getting to see that emotion play out, Elizabeth Dulau getting to exude that emotion, but also working, I think coalescing with what April V. Woods does as the younger version of the character. It's really kind of beautiful to see it all come together. The other character, though, I really want to call out here, it will dive a little bit more into the criticism I've had this season of what's otherwise a freaking great show, is Lonnie, because he gets such an important moment here. It turns out that, Lonnie was absolutely crucial to all this, that Lonnie is the one who comes to Luthen and tells him about the freaking Death Star. And Lonnie is a character that I do think is one of those ones that really got hurt by them turning what was going to be 4 seasons into 1. I feel like you can feel when he's telling Luthen everything he went through in this past year and everything he did to get this information. I'm like, well, this would have been amazing episodes of Andor to see that, instead of him being kind of off screen a lot and then popping in and out. That being said, I still felt really bad for this guy and everything he sacrificed. And in the scene when he's talking to Luthen, and Luthen says something about, we're in this together, and telling him he's going to take him to Yavin, what's going to happen. Luthen being who Luthen is, this is a loose end, a worry. What if the Empire gets him? What if anyone uses him for this information? Luthen's not going to let that happen. But that tragedy playing out and knowing that Lonnie is doomed, it was really effective. And man, poor Lonnie, and the fact that he'll never be praised for this. He'll never get his due. Luthen alone is a controversial figure, but at least the higher ups in the Rebel Alliance know about him. But Lonnie, no one knows Lonnie. I guess Kleya might. Maybe Kleya will talk about him someday. I'd like to think that. But yeah, these episodes were incredible. How it built, it all became about, can they get to Kleya and get this information from her, but then also rescue her? And I kept thinking, this is it for her, especially when she gave Cassian, when she gave him the info, what she knew, and Galen Erso and all these little pieces about the Death Star. I was like, well, no, this is it. Now she's gonna die. But she made it through. And the quest to rescue her, it was really exciting. It was really fun. It really did a good job, I think, of building us into Rogue One, not just on the plot level, but the feel. And, some of that is pretty literal because we've got Cassian teamed up with K2SO, but also Melshi, who is not part of the core sort of 6 group of Rogue One, but he's there. He joins them. He's one of the rebels who steps up to go to Scarif. So to get these 3 guys a few days before that's going to happen, working here together, and it amps up sort of the action and excitement a little more than Andor does. It gives us a little more of a traditional kind of fun, exciting stuff, especially with K2SO, because this is not a show that often gives us those satisfying hell yeah moments. But when K2SO gets to, use his strength for good and come in there and sort of just kick a lot of Imperial ass and save the day, it's very satisfying. And I think it's more satisfying maybe because this show doesn't give us a lot of that. I'm about to praise someone while also massacring their name, but I really want to mention the director of these final 3 episodes, who is Alonso Ruiz Palacios. I am so sorry. But yeah, what a great job directing these, because it did have to thread that needle. It did have to feel like Andor and have all that heaviness, but also be a little more action-oriented in a more positive, which is to say more heroic way than we often see on Andor. And I think it did all that so well. All the emotional stuff just, landed incredibly strongly. But then you have that sequence that showdown to rescue Kleya, which always has the danger, the tension. Is this going to go terribly wrong for Kleya? Again, we know Cassian, K2SO, and Melshi are going to make it out of there, but for Kleya, there's a lot of real tension. But then it ultimately is going to work out, and we're going to get this showdown between them and the Imperial guys who were there, the ISB guys who were there to try to take her and kill her, and K2SO coming to the rescue. It all worked really well. It was a really cool, exciting sequence. But then the 3 episodes together, they all just worked really well and kind of built and built and built. And ultimately, I was so grateful that Kleya lived, because I cared about the character so much, but also because Luthen died, it felt like this was the right call. Like, it just worked dramatically that she would make it. And then, that feeling of being lost, like that she doesn't fit in on Yavin, I thought that was really well done, because she is a very, very different kind of rebel. It was funny when Vel popped up, because again, it was like, oh yeah, Vel, because she'd been gone for several episodes. Like, the way that the series had to work this season, kind of pushing a lot of these peripheral characters off screen a lot more, than I think we would have seen in the different version, the version we didn't get of these final seasons. But no, I thought they used her really well here. Her and Cassian, sharing that drink to their fallen comrades, and then her kind of being there to comfort Kleya and kind of tell her she has a place here. And now those characters are out there to be used. I don't need to see them again. I think that, Andor's told such a satisfying story, and of course Rogue One will give us a wrap up to Cassian and a lot of other characters here. But I have to believe someone's going to use Kleya and Vel again. I don't know if that's going to be in live action, but there's a lot of other ways. But I would love to see these actors play these characters again. I just guess it's just a question of like, what kind of project is it? And would it be weird if they pop up like in The Mandalorian or something? Or is there some new iteration of Star Wars you could use them in? And we don't know, did they survive the trilogy, the original trilogy? We have no idea. We know that they were still there and they were still part of the fight. I did not get my Merrick, my blue leader. He got a name drop, because we got Admiral Raddus from Rogue One popping up here, and he mentioned that Merrick was away, and my heart sank. I'm sorry we didn't get to see him. But fun to bring in a lot more of the Rogue One elements, including those those a-holes, the ones who don't support Jyn in Rogue One, still being a-holes. But I like the whole debate here about how much do they believe in, invest in what Luthen has told them, this information that he passed to Kleya, that she's gotten to them. Although Lonnie, my man Lonnie, he's the one who got to Luke in the first place, but no one knows about him. But yeah, this debate between them, and we got the a-holes, the Rogue One a-holes, who are never going to go along with this stuff. But the characters that we are invested in, that we know are really great, important people here, Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, they're different levels of it. And Mon Mothma, she's hesitant, but she also has that a line about she knows Luthen, the good and bad, and she does think this is probably true. And I really liked how this argument about Luthen and should we believe this information all ended up aiming towards them all sort of paying respect to Luthen, and the show paying respect to him, but also characters like Mon Mothma and Cassian, of course, and Wilman, and all of them saying, look, he was someone really important, and we are here because of the work he did. And this show letting us understand all it took for the Rebel Alliance to come together, and Luthen was not the only part of it, and there's all these other people like Mon Mothma and people we haven't even met, and then people like Vel, but it all came together. But Luthen was very important. What he did throughout the years, sort of fighting the good fight, maybe in a bad way sometimes, but that he put in this work that is now sort of paying off on Yavin, even if it's a place that he never would have felt comfortable at and he never was going to step foot on. But yeah, during this debate about whether they should trust Luthen's information compared to Mon Mothma, Bail is more hesitant, and he's sort of the one that has to work harder to get there. But I like that. I just thought it was really well done, sort of seeing that journey. And ultimately, you feel like, of course, he's going to do the right thing. He's Bail Organa. But it was great sort of seeing that debate, the way it played out. And once more, great job by Benjamin Bratt here taking over this role, even though, yes, it is funny that in a day or two, Jimmy Smits will be walking into that same base. Bail Organa will look suddenly different, but it's okay. Sometimes it happens. Mon Mothma, it's funny to think about how Mon Mothma, if you're watching in chronological order the Star Wars movies and TV shows, you have one time when it's not Genevieve O'Reilly when you watch Return of the Jedi, and then it goes back to her because she played the part in Ahsoka. So, it's fine. And I thought Bail was really well used here. When he says, "May the Force be with you," to Cassian, it's a really great moment. This show has been very careful about when it uses sort of Force elements, and we had the Force healer come in here in the last couple episodes, but then he says, "May the Force be with you," and it's a great use of the line. It's also really poignant and sad if you take a step back, because both these men are going to be dead within a few days. It is going to be a very tragic few days for Bail Organa, Cassian Andor, for Scarif, for Alderaan. A lot of bad things are going to happen in the next few days. And yeah, the passing the baton to Rogue One, so well done here. I mentioned this, I think, in my overall season review going into the season, but yeah, thinking about the fact that we're going to now be able, whenever we want, to watch Andor, all of Andor, but particularly these last 3 episodes, and then Rogue One, and then Star Wars A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, and it's telling this story that takes place over a few days, the last 3 of Andor into Rogue One and A New Hope. A story told over a few days that took almost 50 years, took 48 years for us to see actually play out in front of us. But I think it all really works in its own different ways, and is just a really cool, amazing thing they've done here with Star Wars and how these pieces all fit together so well. I realize I haven't talked about Miro here, and what happens to her. She has this excellent scene with Luthen. I love that scene because when she walks into his shop, because both the characters are playing a part in this moment, and it's this funny back and forth between them because they're both pretending to be someone they're not, or pretending that they're there for a different reason, and you kind of sense that they both know the other one is telling a lie, and it's almost like this veneer between them. Before that veneer is dropped, of course, and she's going to pull her blaster, and he's going to use that knife to stab himself. But wonderful sequence there between the two of them, and how that all kind of led to that. But then everything kind of collapsing for her here, and her basically losing it all. The scene with her and Krennic is excellent. Ben Mendelsohn is so good, and again, we're seeing this different side of Krennic here. He is much more assertive and much more scary than we saw in Rogue One. And we know that everything's about to change for him. He has a line here. He says to Partagaz, "You sound like Tarkin." And very shortly, Tarkin is going to, come into his life in a much bigger way, and everything's going to go very bad for him. But yeah, so we see him sort of enjoying these last moments of power, and Miro losing it all. And, I think it works dramatically to have her kind of end up in that cell. Again, alive technically the last time we see her. So is her story 100% over? Probably. But I guess you never know. But yeah, she's sort of coming undone here at the end. Her aspirations, all she was sort of trying for, coming close, having her moments. It's so grim to say that Gorman would be a triumph for her. It was, except she lost Cyril at the same time. And then here, with Luthen, and the fact that she knows she has to take him alive, and how badly that goes. By the way, I really liked when they first assume that it was a 3-man job to get into that hospital to kill Luthen. It's a pretty nice way to reinforce, yeah, Kleya's pretty badass. They thought it must take 3 people to do something she did on her own. Really nice stuff here with these characters at the end. Again, they're juggling so much, and they only have so much screen time, but I thought they did, right by them all. I like that Krennic, we just see that brief glimpse of him in the finale, looking at the Death Star, and we kind of catch all these characters. It's obviously given all this weight because of Rogue One, and so to see Saw Gerrera one last time there, to see Krennic there, and to know that everything's about to sort of collide for them, and a lot of them are about to lose their lives, including Cassian, who walks forward into this future, and we're going to meet him in that movie. It all leads to this sort of final reveal with Bix, and I had such a funny little bit of whiplash there, because on one hand, it's a bit of a trope, right? The hero who dies, but it turns out he left a baby behind, who often, not always, but often, he didn't know about that baby, so it can be this last thing of sort of he lives on in this way. But it's also extra funny here because Star Wars has done this very directly with Kanan on Star Wars Rebels. So this is like an exact beat we have seen play out in Star Wars before, which is oh, this great hero is going to die, but the woman he loves, she lives on, and guess what? She also had their child. So I had in my mind, oh, they're doing this again? And then I started to like tear up because it didn't really matter. Yeah, okay, we've seen it before in Star Wars. It still got me, I still love these characters, and I still sort of felt the weight of their journey and everything they've gone through. To see Bix there with the baby, and that this is Cassian's kid, and that Cassian's life is about to end for a very noble cause, but that this life he never got to live with Bix, of course, tragically, but that she is out there with their kid again. Will someone pick up a story with these characters? Maybe. I already saw, it's funny, I saw speculation online that Bix might end the show pregnant or have a baby, and then there was it went into this whole man, the kid might be Poe Dameron, which is ridiculous. Don't do that. I understand why fans want to do that and over connect everything, but we know who Poe's parents are, and we don't need it to be that important. This is, I think, as someone who agrees with the complaints about Rise of Skywalker, saying oh, it was a mistake to make it that Rey did come from important lineage. We don't need that to be the case with Poe Dameron. Let Bix and this baby just be their own thing, and maybe we see them again, and maybe we don't. But it is ultimately, I can say it's a cliche, but it's still, things work for a reason. And I think ending on that note, it has the proper impact that you want it to. But man, just this show in its totality is fantastic. I'm so glad we got it. And as much as I might have complained about, the second season, I wish it was more episodes and more seasons, not just because I want more of it, but because also sometimes it could be a little frustrating. It doesn't matter ultimately, because I would still tell anyone, watch this show. I do tell people who haven't seen it, watch this show. It's so good. It is so interesting and complex and has so much emotion. And yeah, it's just one of the best parts of Star Wars. I'm so glad we got it. I'm so glad we got this second season and got to finish up the story the way we did. So those are my thoughts on the final 3 episodes of Andor. Wish we had more to talk about with Andor. I mean, we'll still talk about it because it's great. If you can and if you can subscribe, that would be great. Not as great as Andor, but still great. All right, guys. Thanks so much, and hey, may the Force be with you. Oh, and thank you, Tony Gilroy, or maybe Tom Bissell, who did such an amazing job writing these final 3 episodes, for including that quick shot of B2 there at the end when we saw Bix. We saw B2, he's racing along, he's got some sort of pal with him, a droid pal, so we know he's got a buddy, he's got Bix back with him. He's not going to see Caspian again, and that's sad, but he's going to be okay. I need to know B2 is going to be okay. Our favorite emo droid, I just want the best for him, so he's going to be out there happy. Right? Forever? I'm going to say forever.